Hey, what's up, everybody? Just checking out my new setup, making sure everything's working. Chat's working good. First time using it. What's going on, everybody? First time back in a while. We switched to doing these monthly. Used to do them weekly. So let me say what's up to everybody in the chat real quick. Sonkit, can always count on you being first. I want you to keep that streak up. You're always the first in the chat. Siddharth, good to see you again. I know it has been a while. That mental motivator, hey, what's going on? Vadim Chick, what's up? What's up? Yep, Sonkit's always first. Hey, Greg, good to see you again. It's been a while. Herman K, good to see you. Vitaly, hey, how's it going? Kyle, Optimus Prime. Patrick, good to see you. Patrick's been hustling on Twitter. If you don't follow him on Twitter, check out what he's doing. He's always in there interacting with people. It's great to see. He's using it the right way. It's going to benefit him in the long run. What's going on, Zach? Yep, the new layout. Yeah, first time trying it. I would love to hear some feedback on that. I don't know how this new chat thing's going to work out, but we'll see. Giving it a try. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Let me back up and say we are going to do these monthly. So if you're not following me on Twitter, go ahead and give me a Twitter follow. You can see the links down there to the right. Because I don't know if I'm going to do it at the same time every month. Just because, everybody's from all over the world. It might not work for everybody. So going to kind of mix up the time. So follow me on Twitter. I'll be announcing it. It's going to be the first Sunday of every month, but the actual time may change. Some quick updates about me and the channel. If you guys didn't notice, I launched a show called Swift News that is going to air every Monday. So episode 2 comes out tomorrow. And it's just going to be updating you on what's going on in the iOS Swift community throughout the week. It's really meant for people who are maybe learning the code part-time and can't really be into this. Like I said, I'm in it. I mean, I'm all these people I follow on Twitter, newsletters, all the stuff. I get inundated with iOS information. So the whole point of that show is to basically curate all that stuff and make it a 10 to 15 minute video for people that maybe don't have the time to be always in the know. So that actually got very great reception, very well received. I did it as an experiment, but we're going to keep it up. So episode 2 airs tomorrow. I'm actually going to film it pretty much right after this live stream. But also what you're going to see in the channel, I'm going to knock out the Advanced Swift series, hopefully in the next couple weeks, and then we'll branch off from there. As for me with my job hunt, I know that's where I kind of left off with a lot of you guys talking about that. Basically, I'm not going to say much about it. I'm working on a job hunt mega vlog, which is going to be 6 or 7 vlogs that once everything is done, there's offers made or offers not made, or I take on a different role, whatever. Once that is all said and done, I'm going to release, it's probably going to be about 6 or 7 episodes, basically just back to back to back to back of how the job hunt went. It's going to cover everything from how I even got the interviews. For those that don't know, I interviewed at Coinbase, Facebook, Apple, Google. How I even got those interviews, to the recruiter call, to the phone screens, to, I'm still in the process, so it's not done yet, to potential on-sites and then potential offers if that happens. And then just talking about my thought process throughout the whole way, how I'm feeling about it, how I studied for it, and all that. So that's going to drop hopefully whenever this job stuff comes to a resolution. So hopefully that's soon. All right, let me catch up on the chat here, see what's going on. Oh, by the way, how this works, if you haven't been to one of my live streams before, because it has been a while, I usually talk for about 5 to 10 minutes about a subject. And then during that 5 to 10 minutes, I want you guys to go ahead and ask your questions. And I will, after I'm done with my little speech, I'll jump in and start answering the questions. We'll do the Q&A section. So the topic for today is take-home projects during the interview process. So if you have questions about that, feel free to ask that. I'll answer them at the end. And then also, I'd love to know your thoughts on them. Some developers think they're a complete waste of time and they hate doing them. Some developers love them because it gives them a chance to really sit back and showcase their skills. Where do you fall on that? Do you hate them? Do you love them? Is it situational? What's been your experience with them? I'd love to hear that and love to kind of get that discussion going after I kind of give my talk on it. So this all kind of came about here. Let me switch my setup a little bit. This all came about from Ash Furrow's article that I caught on Twitter this week. He just released it a couple days ago, as you can see, March 28th. He had some good thoughts on it. I'm going to link, the link is in the description, by the way, to this article if you want to go ahead and read it, because I know you can't really see it that much on my screen. But he talks about how he's mentoring a junior developer, and they got a take-home test. And he normally likes take-home tests. But the weird kink in this take-home test was that he's applying for an iOS developer role. But the take-home test he got had nothing to do with iOS development. It was like a general programming take-home test. And, Ash goes on to talk about how he actually thinks that's perfectly okay, because as programmers, the language shouldn't be the big deal. We solve problems for a living. So kind of an interesting perspective, but this article is kind of what got me thinking about it, to talk about it here on the live stream. And then I also brought it up in my Slack community. I just asked the question, hey, what are your guys' thoughts? And we had a pretty good discussion going on, just to give you an idea of what we talk about here in the Slack community. And that is for Patreon. You can see the link down in the lower right if you are interested in that. But yeah, so let me kind of give my thoughts on it. Now, I typically love a take-home project. And here's why. Because during the interview process, like the 1 hour phone screen, you have somebody looking over your shoulder while you code. You're hearing the problem for the very first time. You're nervous. It's an interview. You only have like half hour to 45 minutes to solve it, depending on the structure of the interview. So it's just not the typical working environment. Whereas a take-home project, you can take, 1 hour, 2 hours, however long it takes. They vary in time for sure. But you can take the time to get into your normal workflow and actually produce, quality project. Now, the downside to that, why interviewers might not do that, is because they think you can get help from other developers, cheat online. But you do that anyway in real life, so I don't get that. In my opinion, the value of the take-home project really comes in after you turn it in. So I've seen two things happen after you turn in a take-home project. Either the reviewer just looks at it and says, okay, good job, or no thanks. That kind of sucks because you want feedback or you want to talk about your code. The best way to evaluate a take-home project is to, once you submit it, then have a 1 hour interview to talk about it with the interviewer. And a lot of companies do this. This isn't rare. But I think that's when you're going to get the best value, because you're going to be able to explain why you made the decisions you did, why you chose this class instead of this class, or, you can just talk about why you did this, and then they can really dissect your code, and you can just sit back and answer questions about it. And that really gives you a chance to showcase not only your knowledge, but the way you think about code, because the way you think about code is just as important as your actual code. So that's why I typically like the take-home project. However, there's good and bad to it, because sometimes the take-home projects can take 4 to 6 hours. They always tell you, take 2 to 4 or whatever, but I always try to go the extra mile, right? Because you're interviewing, you're trying to impress, you're trying to put your best foot forward. I go back and refactor my code so much, make sure everything is lined up perfectly, it looks good, it's easy to read. I just really go the extra mile because, like I said, you're interviewing. So the downside to that is some companies do give take-home interviews, some don't. And then, when you're interviewing, some companies you're just not all that interested in, and some you are. So when I ask the question of, do you think it's a waste of time, or do you think it's a great use of your time? My answer to that is it depends, right? Like if a company I don't really care about asks me to do a 6 hour take home test, I'm going to be like, probably not going to do it. And probably just going to be like, all right, company B, sorry. However, if a company like Apple, asks me to do a take home test, like I'll do a week long take home test. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a spectrum of how much you care about working for that company, to how much you don't. And then that's your kind of, that's how I feel about it anyway. So like I said, I would love to hear how you guys feel when you get a take home test. Do you cringe? Or do you get excited? I typically get excited because usually I'm not even applying for a job unless I'm interested in it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then I want to talk about real quick before I get into some of these questions I see they're racking up, kind of who asks the take-home test typically. So like I said, I just got done interviewing with Coinbase, Apple, Facebook, Google. Those big companies, 95% of the time, you're not going to get a take-home test. They have the pretty standard recruiter call, 1 hour technical phone screen over Google Hangouts, and then on-site, that typical flow. I've typically seen take-home tests in mid-sized to smaller startups, just to give you an idea of like when you're going to get these take-home tests. And again, if you've seen differently, let me know. I'd love to hear it. So that's why, like I kind of mentioned, sometimes when a super small startup that you're just not that interested in gives you a take-home test, it's kind of a bummer. You'd much rather just do the 1 hour screen. But yeah, so that's typically where you're going to see it, mid-sized to smaller startups. And then they can vary in type. It can be, sometimes I've gotten take-home tests where you just have to implement, like I had to implement the Giphy home screen, right? Where I just had to load all the GIFs. And then sometimes it's literally just like 3 questions that you would answer like out of cracking the coding interview. And it's just 3 of those, but you solve them on your own time. I've got a wide variety of them. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. And again, I was kind of hoping the discussion, you guys would have a bunch of stuff to add to it. So let's go ahead and catch up on the chat. It's quite a lot. Give me 1 second to catch up here. I really wish the chat on the right would scroll. I'm scrolling through my chat here, but with this new layout, I can't scroll it up so you guys can see which one I'm looking at here. All right. So Siddhar says, such an ideal topic. I'm currently in talks with a remote project, and they're giving me a hiring assignment. Cool. Yeah, Siddhar, I'd love to hear about it. You can get in contact with me. Feel free to DM me on Twitter if you have questions about it or anything like that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts after you've done one. Yogesh said he's learning iOS development here. Cool, you've come to the right place. Thomas Swatland says he's on a road trip with his fiance. She's driving, and I'm really sociable. Happy to see the dedication, Thomas. I appreciate that. I know you've been attending these for a while now and been a long-time supporter of the channel, so much appreciated. Print says, how long does it take to learn Swift? This is a very situational question. How much time can you give to it? Can you give 10 hours a day to it? Then it probably won't take that long. And when I say not take that long, I'm talking like 6 months. If you can only give like 2 hours a day to it, that's going to take you a long time. But this is also very variable on people's personal skills as well. Derek says, Apple has Swift-specific job. Yes and no. You mean like where you write Swift? So most of Apple's jobs are definitely in Objective-C because most of Apple's language is still in Objective-C. But there are a few that have converted over to Swift that are available, but it's definitely majority of Objective-C. Patrick says, the beard is fierce, I miss mine. Yeah, it's getting unruly, I don't know. I contemplate shaving it every once in a while, but we'll just keep it now. Yeah, Tsonga says, give it at least 6 months, I would agree with that. How to get projects, that's kind of vague. I always say, though, your network is the most valuable thing to you, whether you build that up through people you've worked with before, build that up through working on small projects or companies you previously worked with. I'm going to talk about a contract I got in a little bit here, and that was through people I previously worked with. And then, yeah, just build your network, even if it's on Twitter. That's where you're going to get it. Can't someone else just do them for you and you just learn from the code? So Vlad, yeah, kind of like I did touch on this, but that's why I said the value is in having an interview after the take-home test, to where they literally ask you all kinds of questions about your code and why you made certain decisions and so forth. So they're going to be able to know if you didn't write it, because they're going to ask, some pretty deep questions. For later, could you create a video of GCD? So I did a little bit. I have a concurrency and threading video, Christian. Check it out on my channel. It's in my Swift interview series. I think you're looking for something deeper, because that is pretty much like an intro to it. If you watch Swift news from last week, I give an article, link to an article about GCD and NS operation queues. That might help you out. If anyone wants a coupon code for developers conference, okay. Spammy. All right, I'll catch up on the questions, but I did want to talk about this contract. This is an update, kind of on the job hunt, because the network question kind of made me think about it. So, and it's also kind of where the channel is going. So I did accept a contract for 6 weeks, and the reason it's a 6-week contract is because, like I mentioned before, I am in this job interview process. So it's kind of line up. Because, it's, a couple weeks until you do the final onsite. And then if everything goes well, then you got to wait for an offer. Then you got to negotiate. Then, by the time you actually start, it's a long process. So I do start a contract tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Monday, right? Yeah, tomorrow. For 6 weeks, that it was a nice considerable bump in my hourly rate. If you guys seen my hourly rate video, you know what it was. It's a considerable bump in that. And that is going to allow me to focus on YouTube a lot more, because I only have to work 25, 30 hours a week versus 40 to 50 hours a week. So, and it's a nice temporary contract, and it provides me great flexibility to where, like I said, the contract is kind of like a trial period of 6 weeks. And then after that 6 weeks, I can either decide to go full time with them if if we both agree that's a good thing, or if any of these other job offers come in, then I'll have some options. But really my decision is between, do I want the learning of a big company like the Facebook, the Apples, of all that stuff, where I'm going to learn a ton by working in a team and working with much senior developers. And to be honest with you, there's a little bit of prestige that comes with working with those companies. And not that I really care about like prestige, but it's a good thing to have on your resume for like future jobs. Also, if you can just say, I was a developer at insert big company here, kind of just gives you more credibility than insert small startup here a little bit. Perception is reality kind of thing, even if it may not be really true. But the contract / YouTube is just so much fun, and I'm building my own business, my own thing, rather than somebody else's app. So anyway, that's kind of my update with my contract. I wanted to get that out before I moved on with the questions. So, sorry, just scrolling through here. Mohammed says, hey, Sean, there's one issue. Everyone need 3 years experience in new language like Swift. They don't hire freshmen. This is very painful for a teenager like me. No one hires us. How do we get experience? So I do feel your pain. I remember when I was applying, everything said, 3 years experience required, and it's the whole chicken and the egg thing. Like, well, if I need 3 years experience, how do I get that experience? I would recommend, Mohammed, to just start building small projects, start building up that portfolio. That 3 years experience, don't let that stop you from applying. And recruiters will tell you this. It's because, yes, they say that, but if you're good enough and you have a portfolio built up and you've proven that you can do the job and you interviewed and you just crush all their questions, they're going to hire you. They're not, if you have 1.5 year experiences, they're not going to be like, oh, you don't meet the 3 year experience mark. Like, if you can do it, they're going to hire you. If you can do it, you're good for the job. You have a good attitude. You're a good teammate. Like, that 3 years experience. I don't know why they put that, but don't let that stop you from applying. But start building your own portfolio, very small projects, build your GitHub page, build a personal website that people can check out. You got to start small. But yeah, that'll help out. Prince says, I'm a Kotlin developer. Can I learn Swift easily? I don't know Kotlin, but from everything I've seen, Kotlin is actually pretty similar to Swift. There's a lot of similarities at least. So I would say it's, again, easy is such a subjective word, but I would say it would be a smooth transition, I would think. Darren says, anything on macOS development? Darren, I've never actually built a macOS app. I'm actually curious. There's all this rumors of this Marzipan thing where I don't know if it's going to be like a combined OS where they combine macOS and iOS, or if it's just going to be the ability to run iOS apps on macOS to where you can just like build an iOS app and run it in macOS. So I think here at WWDC, we're going to see an interesting development when it comes to that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But no, I haven't done any macOS development. I've been strictly iOS, tvOS a little bit. Zach Wood says, yeah, I think the take-home tests are good for both the company and the applicant. You mentioned companies being worried about cheating, but I think the interview after you turn it in mitigates that. Yep, exactly what I was saying. And again, I actually like that because I like talking about my code. And I also like, because a lot of times you'll learn stuff too. I'm sure you guys want a job. You're not there to just learn, but when they ask you questions like, oh, did you think about doing it this way? And you're like, oh, no, I didn't. And you're like, that's actually a better way to do it. And you'll kind of learn stuff too. But I just love having those conversations about code. So that part of the interview is like super fun for me. So yeah. What are your thoughts on Flutter? Haven't looked into it yet, but I'm not a big fan of cross-platform development, whether it's Flutter or React Native, all that stuff. I like I said, I don't bash it. There's a time and a place for it. It does save you money, one code base, all that stuff. I get all that. I just prefer native development and having just all the power of native. And again, native is more expensive, so smaller companies may not be able to do it. Fully get it, but I'm just not really a fan of cross-platform development. Personally, I'm not saying it's bad. Yogesh says, hey, thanks for reading my article earlier today. Okay. I don't remember that, but yeah, okay, I remember it now. Yes, I hit you up on Twitter. You had the intro email, intro to Swift. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it was a good article. I thought it was a good summary of somebody that was already programming and hadn't really learned about Swift yet. Because if you guys don't know, Google or TensorFlow announced that their new language is going to be Swift. So I was searching on Twitter, and there's a lot of I don't know what they write. We'll call them Java developers for lack of a better term, but that are now interested in Swift because TensorFlow's main language is going to be Swift. TensorFlow is a machine learning thing. I don't know much about it, but so it's kind of funny to see all these developers starting to ask about Swift. So I think that would be a good article for them. Yeah, Patrick says, "Don't shave, you'll hate it." Yeah. I need to trim it at least. I need to go to a professional barber and have it trimmed and not trim it myself and look like a homeless person. Christoph says, I did a similar show on YouTube like your Swift News. It was called iDev Report, but it didn't go well for me. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that, Christoph. Wish it did. But yeah, Swift News has been going pretty well. Got a lot of good exposure. To be fair, I also had a bit of an audience before I launched it, so maybe that helped me out here. Looks like Socket's getting into some conversations with people. Good stuff. Socket is part of the Slack community as well. There's like 80 developers in there, but like just the honest truth is probably 20 to 25 are like actually active and in the conversation. Socket's one of them, but yeah, not to just completely just promote the Slack community in the Patreon, but there's a lot of good discussion going on in there. Again, career questions, education, like where to learn stuff, like, websites. We talk about Swift questions, just general stuff, interviewing tips. If you're, like I said, my big thing is I want you guys to like build a network. So I'm trying to build this community to where, and I want to keep it small and tight knit. That's why it's not just open to everybody, to where there's like, 1,000 people in there, because the conversation just gets so watered down. So I do want to keep it fairly small, but the whole purpose for it was to, sorry, I got distracted by the super chat. Get to that in a second. The whole purpose of it was to help you guys build your network. And I know, like, I'm not gonna lie, I got my interview with Apple. I got through somebody in my Slack community who I met through this YouTube channel. So that's just proof in the pudding right there. Like Apple, I got an interview at Apple because of networking through my YouTube channel via my Slack community. I'm not saying you're going to get an interview at Apple by joining my Slack community. Not saying it at all. But my point is, you never know who you're going to meet, because you guys may all be junior developers right now, but you're all coming up together. In 2-3 years after you've built this relationship with each other, somebody and you're really good friends with now that you met online may get a job at one of these major companies that you want to get a job at. Now you have a good referral. It's just build your network. And like I just want to stress, don't worry about building your network with people above you. When I say above you, people that have been doing it for like 5-6 years, super senior to you. Focus on building network of people on your level as well, because you guys are going to come up together and you never know. For example, how I got the Coinbase interview was I went to a boot camp, as you guys probably know. My partner in that boot camp got hired at Coinbase shortly after the boot camp. So now, like, I'm pretty good friends with, an iOS developer at Coinbase. So, and that's how I got that interview. So anyway, like I said, as you're coming up, just meet developers, provide value for them, build your network. It's just that's what I can't stress enough, because the most common question I get is, how do I get a job? How do I get contracts? How do I do this? And again, it's all about who you know. It's just how the world works. All right, sorry for that rant. Let me get to this super chat from Max Speed. Thank you for your content. Thank you for the super chat. So I'm confused because a lot of people have different screen names. I think he's in the Slack community as well. But I appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. We'll come back to that. All right. Sorry, I lost my place in chat now. I'm scrolling up here. Okay, so Herman says, before applying for large companies, before applying for large companies, what should you need to do for example, reading, cracking the coding interview, LinkedIn account, 2 to 3 projects in the App Store, etc. So I would definitely have one app on the App Store at least. The more, the better. Have a nice portfolio site. I just think people are visual, because like when people are going to check you out, like, oh, Sean applied, let me go check him out. They're going to go to like your website or something real quick. They're not going to want to read a wall of text, right? Make it very, very visual, make it look great. So they're like, oh, wow, this looks good. That's to get their attention. And then, yeah, studying, cracking the coding interview is good for just the interview process. And I would start studying that. Like, don't get the interview and then study. Like, start studying 2 months before you even know you're going to start interviewing, just because there's so much in there. And those questions, if you're not used to them, and if you don't have a computer science degree, those questions are pretty, tough to kind of start. If you do have a computer science degree, that's kind of the stuff you did in college, so you might be a little more familiar with it. But yeah, so cracking the coding interview, at least one app on the App Store, a pretty strong portfolio site. And even if you don't have more than one app on the App Store, I would have a GitHub of at least a couple small projects. They don't have to be production level apps, right? Just small projects that showcase that, you can make a network call, you can build a collection view. You know what I mean? That's all they can be, because that's the whole point of them, is to showcase what you can do, and so people can look at your code for how you did it. So yeah. Raghu says, while I'm giving an interview, I panic under pressure, which leads to me taking too long to answer. So how to maintain calm under pressure? Yeah, this is tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I get nervous so I could be coding a base. It's funny. So I did a live stream a while back of me actually live coding a table view. It went horrible because I was distracted. I was worried about the chat. I knew people were watching me. I've built 1,000 table views. I just completely messed it up. So the same thing kind of happens in interviews. You're nervous already, worried you're going to say the wrong thing. You got people looking over your shoulder. I mean, you do have to stay calm, because sorry, I got to take a drink. you do have to stay calm because that's also what they're assessing. Like if you just panic and freak out, like that's not going to be good for you. So even if you are getting the wrong question, you definitely have to stay calm. How to help you stay calm? I don't have any any answers there. Just practice, really. I think you get super nervous when you aren't confident in your abilities. But if you've practiced cracking the coding interview questions, for 2 months and you can answer anything they throw at you, you're going to go in there more confident. And the more confidence you have, the more calm you're going to be. At least that's what I found with me. Like I only get nervous when I don't know what I'm talking about, right? Because I'm worried people are going to like see through me, all right? But if I know what I'm talking about and like I'm confident, I'm not nervous at all. So that's what I would recommend is be confident and prepare. Patrick says, would you consider building your own contract dev shop? I have thought about it, and I have experimented with subcontracting with a developer in my Slack community. We just did a little trial period. He built like one screen. I just don't, if I were to do that, like I would have to sacrifice YouTube and all my other side projects because that would be like the biggest side project because there's a lot of headaches in like running that kind of dev shop, right? So it has crossed my mind, but I just have more fun. Like I do think I could do it, to be honest with you, but I think it's more fun to me to do these other side projects. Like I think building up my YouTube business is a more fun side project than that, to be honest with you. But I think I could do it. I mean, I have this YouTube channel gives me a ton of incoming leads, and also in my Slack community, I have a ton of developers that I know. So right, like ton of incoming leads, ton of developers. It just right, it would work. I just don't want to go through the headache, and it's not as fun for me as like doing this stuff. So. Sean, can you give me a good reference for Advanced Swift? I'm doing a whole video series on it. I don't know if you've watched that yet, Optimus. But if you haven't watched that, go ahead and check that out. I'm going to finish that, do every single chapter. So that should be a good, high level overview because each chapter, like for example, the one I'm about to do tomorrow is on optionals and it's like 45 pages on optionals. So if you guys know optionals, they're fairly simple on the surface. So 45 pages on optionals, you get really in depth. But my video series is not going to do that because it would be an hour-long video on every single chapter. My video series is just the top 2 or 3 concepts I learned from each chapter, just to give you guys an idea of the kind of stuff you're going to learn in that book, and then you can buy it if you want. But I would recommend it, not for beginners, for sure. I mean, I'm 3 years into my career, and even some of the stuff is like way over my head. And I have to read it like 4 or 5 times. So if you're just starting out, I think it might discourage you more than it would help you, to be honest with you. You might be like, wow, I know nothing. So I would wait on that. Message held to review. Okay. Warren Buckley says, is a support page required in order to submit an app to the App Store? I believe a website is required. I think if that's what you're talking about. And then depending on what you're doing, you have to have a privacy policy and terms and conditions. But I'm pretty sure you have to have at least a website that people can go to. Ula, what's going on? Ula is also a member of the Slack community. Thanks for the advice with React. No problem. WWDC is going to be interesting. WWDC is my Christmas every year. I can't wait. And this year, like I'm going to take the whole week off of WWDC because I just plan on knocking out like 2 videos a day, just like as they announce stuff and doing stuff. So because I remember WW came out last year when I was early on my channel. So like I did like 4 or 5 total videos, but and even those videos saw like great traction, great views, great new subscribers. So I'm really going all in on WWDC this year for my content. So keep an eye out for that. I think it's like the first week in June, I believe. Herman says, hey Sean, one more question. Feel free to ask all you want. If you had to start all over again and you're fresh out of boot camp, what would you do differently in applying to your first job? Probably nothing, to be honest with you. So what had happened right after my first job was I just applied to like 60 companies, got like 3 callbacks, so like 3 out of 60, and then 1 kind of worked out. So as far as like how did I like hunt for jobs, probably nothing different. What I would have done in the months before is work on my network, like I mentioned. That way I'm not going to the website and applying. I'm getting referrals. But that's not like, don't wait till you're out of a boot camp to start that. Like I said, start building your network now because my network hasn't paid off until like years later. Like I mentioned, I just got that Coinbase interview. I had known that person for a year and a half before I even asked for a referral. So it takes a long time. So I would start building that up beforehand. And then I would have probably built more small projects to have for my portfolio. All I had that I was interviewing with was the app that we built in the boot camp. I just had this finished app, like here we go, and that's what I interviewed on. I wish I would have built more small projects so that I could show a wide variety of code that I wrote. And I remember in that interview that I actually did get the job in, I stumbled because they said, talk about some code that you wrote all by yourself. Well, we were in the boot camp. We were all kind of like doing it together and talking about it, and we were just learning. So like I didn't really know what I was doing. So I didn't have much code that was my own. And, that didn't help much. So yeah, small projects for a portfolio. And again, I want to stress, because I think when people think they have to have a portfolio, they think they have to have these beautiful production level apps that are in the App Store. No, just build small projects that showcase that you can use the camera, showcase that you can do video, network calls, that stuff. They don't have to be full-blown apps. Have you watched the new season of Silicon Valley? Yep, I did. I love that show. So I've told this before, but I know a lot of people are new. It's kind of funny. Before I moved out to San Francisco, the show Silicon Valley had just come out. So this is like summer of 2014 or spring of 2014. And I thought it was hilarious. It was funny. But then when you rewatch it, like after you've actually been in the startup world, it's 10 times more funny. Because like you don't get all like the little jokes and inside jokes. A, I wasn't a developer. B, I wasn't working in startups. But I still thought it was funny. But now that I am a developer and working in startups, it is hilarious. So I love that show. It's cool because they're building a decentralized internet, which is, they're kind of, I think they're probably going to get into going down the crypto route, which I'm super interested in. The company I work for is coding with Objective-C, and they are giving me a take-home project. Can I code the take-home project in Swift? I have a portfolio with some iOS apps, but they are all in Swift. I would ask them that question. Some people don't care. So, for example, I'm interviewing at Facebook in the process. Facebook is mostly Objective-C, pretty much all Objective-C. But they're letting me do the interview in Swift. So some companies, don't care. They just want to see that you are a good programmer, a good problem solver. Some companies might care about that. So, I guess that's definitely a question for the company. Siddharth says, can we expect any blockchain dev DApp videos on this channel, considering you're interested in crypto that you mentioned earlier in the video for future-proofing your career? Siddharth, you're spoiling, spoiler alert now. I do have an idea for a series about doing smart contracts in Ethereum, because that's what I'm kind of learning myself. But that's kind of whatever. I don't know if I'll do that. I'll probably put out a poll to see if there's enough interest in it. But really, the main thing I'm going to hit on, and I already have a vlog planned next week to talk more about this, so I'm not going to get into it. But the whole concept of future-proofing your career, that is the key word there. And again, I'm going to leave it at that because I have a vlog all about that that I'm going to film probably Friday of this week. So, I like where your head's at, Siddharth. I like this concept right here. Could you please explain Operation Q? Off the top of my head, I don't want to say anything wrong, so we'll come back to that one. They're probably Python devs if they use TensorFlow, right? Yes, Norse. That was the thing. I believe TensorFlow is. I don't know if they've stopped using Python and switched to Swift, or if you can still write Python. But basically, and I'm going to talk about this more in Swift News tomorrow and actually link to the video of Chris Latner like talking about it and giving his reasons. But I watched it, and if I remember correctly, like the language of Python was too limiting for what they wanted to do with TensorFlow. So that's why they decided to make the shift to Swift. And if you don't know who Chris Latner is, he was kind of like the Swift team lead, like from the inception of Swift. So he's like hardcore Swift guy. He went to Tesla for a little bit. That didn't work out. Then he moved to Google. And then I guess this is what he's been doing at Google. How to switch from web to iOS development. I'm not sure. I started with iOS development. So I didn't like switch from another programming language. But anytime you're switching from another programming language, it's a much easier transition than going from no programming knowledge to, trying to be a programmer. So, if you're just front end, it might be a tricky transition because there's not much logic in the front end. But if you're a back end web developer, it's probably not going to be that hard. Ula says, what about Patreon content in the future? That would be just Slack. Yeah, so the Patreon update was, I did this a couple months ago, or maybe a month or two ago, where I just limited the Patreon. The only thing, so the purpose of Patreon is like a donation to the creator. Like the reason I started it was because a lot of people asked me about it because they just wanted to show appreciation. It's like, you know what, I've gotten all this value from you, all this free content. I would love to just give you like, $1 or $2 or whatever. Same thing with like these super chats. So that's why it started. But then I also wanted to give value. Like if somebody signed up to Patreon, like let me give them something too back. And then I had all these different tiers. I won't go into the details, but I had all these different tiers with all these levels of rewards. Basically what happened is it just became way too much work to do the YouTube channel, my full-time job, and the Patreon. It was just too much. So I just knocked it down to the base level to where all you get and this is why it's like at the $2 level, the super cheap level. And it's just like you get access to the Slack community. And again, the reason I call it a paywall, if you want, just call it what it is, on the Slack community is because I intentionally want to keep it small, tight knit again. So there's no more higher levels. It's just for the Slack community, and then just to show your appreciation, because that's the whole reason I started it. Because people were like, your interview series got me a job. How can I show you appreciation? And that was kind of the way I thought about doing it. All right. Do you agree with doing live code? Perhaps it's not a comfortable environment for us. Coding mistakes with someone watching you is a lot of pressure. Could not be the result they want to see. I don't agree with live code. I mean, I understand why they do it. They want to see how you handle pressure. I get that. But I don't feel like it's an accurate reflection of my skills. This is my thing with interviews and why I like take-home projects. And I've said this before. Like I feel like I win the deeper game, meaning once you get to know me, once you work with me, I will outperform a lot of people. You just assess me in a 45-minute interview with live coding. Like I'm not going to win that game very often, right? Like just not how I work. So that's why I love the idea of take-home projects. I love the idea of doing trial runs, like with contracts. A lot of times when I do contracts, we'll do like a 4-week or a 2-week, whatever the time period is. Sometimes it's been 1 week, like a 1-week trial period. Like let's work together for 1 week, see how we like each other. And then if things are working out, we'll proceed. If not, cool. We'll go our separate ways. I love stuff like that because, like I said, the deeper you go with me, the better I get. And I hate to sound arrogant with that, but and that's kind of why I put out all this content on YouTube, is because I want people to know as much about me as possible, because I feel like that's when I win. Surface level, if you compare me to other surface level, maybe like a Stanford computer science grad or something, they're probably going to take that. But so I like the take-home projects for that. Alex Gross, Sean, can you make a video about unit testing? This is commonly ignored theme in online courses, so it would be very, very helpful if someone brought some light into it. You are 1,000% right, Alex, and I still haven't really learned all that much testing, to be honest with you, because in the world of contracting, we're always under such tight, at least in the contracting that I do. I work in basically from zero to launch. So the contracting I do is like literally like file new project and then to their launch. So we're building the entire app. And typically there's a lot of time crunch involved because the people that negotiate the contract, are trying to get it done in a certain amount of time. Long story short, testing usually falls by the wayside in the type of contracts that I work on. So I haven't done much testing in my career, but it's absolutely crazy important. And I shouldn't say lost jobs. I have not gotten jobs in the job interview process due to my lack of knowledge on testing. So it definitely costs you. You're 100% right. Don't ignore it. Just as far as me making a video on it, I certainly will in the future because I have to learn it eventually. And I mean, I know the basics, but I don't like doing a video on something until I can explain it pretty well. A lot of people like the way I explain things, and that's because I believe you can explain things very well once you know them inside and out. And I wouldn't say I know everything about testing inside and out yet to explain it in a way that people can get it. Hi, Sean. Which development communities would you recommend? I am in one called iOS Developers. I'll link to that. I don't have a link handy, but I'll link to it. But you can probably just Google it. It's called iOS Developers HQ. But there's literally 1,000, 10,000 people in there. And that's what I was talking about, how Slack communities can get a little noisy when there's way too many people in there. So, but that one has I don't know the number, call it 100 channels. So you can really pick and choose what channels you go into. So that can kind of control the noise a little bit, but that's what I'm in. I do like that one for the channels that I'm in for sure. And you can join mine. But yeah, those are the only two I'm really a part of, aside from people I know, in person here in San Francisco. So there's a lot of iOS developer meetups, coffee meetups that, that I've been to before. So yeah, anything you can find locally in person is pretty good too. Yusuf says, hi, Sean. Thanks for doing this live Q&As. I have a lot of ideas in mind when it comes to building apps, but not all the coding I need is available online. If I ask someone online for help, I might expose my app idea. What do you recommend I should do? Not worry about that. Ideas are and these are not my words. You hear this from pretty much any entrepreneur or whatever, but like ideas are not the thing. Like execution is the game. Everybody has ideas. Every great idea has been thought of. It's just people can't execute on it, right? Like taking your idea, executing it properly, and actually launching it, that's the hard part that 99% of people don't or can't do. I wouldn't worry about exposing your idea, to be honest with you. Because even if, so first of all, there's two things. If your idea is easy to replicate, even if you launch it and it's good, people are going to copy it. Look at stories, Instagram stories, Snapchat stories. People are going to copy it once you launch anyway. So if it's that easy, then who cares? If it's super hard and only you have the expertise to do it, then who cares if they know the idea? Because only you, like if you're a rocket scientist and you're doing a rocket science app, like you're safe. So that's my recommendation. I don't worry about giving away ideas. Just because I know it's so hard to actually execute and do it right, that I'm not worried about that. And like I said, everything's already been thought of. Optimus Prime says, I was a Python programmer for 6 years. I developed a Websploit framework for Kali Linux. These words are all gibberish to me. Some lib for Python, such as EasyColor, but I'm learning Swift now, really powerful language. Nice, awesome to have you. I'm always curious to see, because, just truth be told, Swift is pretty much the only language I know. I'm starting to learn Solidity for Ethereum development and know a little bit of JavaScript, but I'm always curious to know people coming from another language, what they think of Swift. Patrick says nervousness equals excitement, getting all programmer on us there. Switch your brain to be excited. That's a good point. Is there a good reference to sample take-home projects? Not that I know of, but I'm sure they're out there. I have mine always saved on my computer that I do just for my own personal reference. I don't want to, just out of respect for the companies, I'm not going to put that out on the internet, but I'm sure there is a repository, something like that. Herman K says, thanks for answering, man. Glad to see you back again with your videos. You're a great inspiration and one of the large reasons why I took the leap for this career change. Oh, yeah, that's right, Herman. I forgot. You're in the boot camp. So Herman's also in the Slack community, and he is going to a boot camp. I think it's Dev Mountain. He can correct me. But he's actually in the process of going to an in-person boot camp right now. So he did. Like you said, he took the leap. I'm happy to hear that I was a great inspiration. That's very humbling. So hopefully it works out. And then once you get out, we'll see what we can do to help you on the job hunt. You must drink water in your right hand. Okay. Have you considered producing courses like Udemy or Pluralsight? I'm going to drink water out of my left hand right now. No. I just don't like... I'm going to say something that might offend people. I think I don't know. Just making like $10 Udemy courses is just not for me. I don't know. I would much rather put that out online for free if it's the basic stuff, or if it is like an advanced course that I did put my blood, sweat, and tears into, which I am going to start making courses. They're going to be like super, super high quality, many, many videos, and I just don't want to charge $10 a month for them. Like it'll be more expensive because it'll be super high quality, super in depth. I just feel like the Udemy courses, and maybe it's because I haven't had good experiences trying to learn something on Udemy, but whatever. MaxB WWDC meetup. I might be going down there one day. I'll keep you guys posted. I'll put it out on Twitter or something like that. I'm not sure. I don't have a ticket. So if I go down, it's literally just going down to hang out. But I'll put it out on Twitter if I'm going down, and we'll maybe meet up at a coffee shop for anybody that's down there. It'd be pretty cool. What do you think about the future of Vapor and the new Swift NIO? Are you excited? Thanks for the response. So I'm excited about server-side Swift. I know it's, every day it's getting closer and closer to being like viable on production. So I'm excited for when that happens because, and I've said this before, I feel like the missing link. Like I can do design, I can code the client, I just can't build a backend yet in my skills. So I do want to learn backend web development, and I think it's easier for me to learn backend web development if I can just continue to write Swift. So I'm rooting for server-side Swift to become very, very mainstream. Like fingers crossed, hope they all do awesome. And hopefully, I'm not saying it's going to become the standard, probably never will, but if it did become the standard, it'd be amazing. So that's what I'm rooting for, and that'll really help me learn back-end development. But for right now, I haven't taken the leap to learn that. So I don't really have much of an intelligent opinion on it, except that I'm just really, really rooting for it. Sophine, what is your best advice for someone who want to learn iOS development? Immerse yourself 1000%, even if the stuff is over your head. I'm talking about podcasts, YouTube videos, newsletters, blog posts, whatever. Follow my Swift news video. You're going to get all the news. And the reason I say completely immerse yourself is because when you first start, 99% of it is going to be like way over your head, but you're like subconsciously absorbing it. Like you just start hearing stuff, and even if it's like super advanced and you don't hear it, 6 months to a year later, because you've heard it, a bunch of times, then it finally clicks. You're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. And now it makes more sense just because you've just completely immersed yourself, and you'll just learn it. To me, if you're really serious about it, it's not something you can really do for like an hour a day. I mean, you can, it's just going to take you a very, very long time. But if you want it to happen like as fast as possible, you just gotta eat, breathe, and sleep it. That's just how I learn stuff anyway. And repetition a ton. Like, even if you think table views are stupid and you hate doing it, like do 7 table view tutorials. Like, just that repetition is really going to learn it. Don't do one tutorial and be like, okay, I know it. It's just not how it goes, at least for me. How do you manage to self-motivate to work all the time? How do you just not get distracted an hour and watch YouTube videos or something? Oh, I do all the time. Like, that's the downside of working from home by myself. Like, that's what I do in contracting, except, so the contract I just told you guys about that I start Monday, I'm actually going to go to the office 3 days a week. And I said that. They're like, you can work from home if you want. I'm like, no, I want to go to an office. Because, yeah, when you're sitting at home, and me, I live in a studio apartment, so like it's practically my bedroom. It's very, very easy to just get distracted and start, watching YouTube videos, playing some Hearthstone. And next thing you know, an hour goes by and you're like, shit. So that is the downside of like making your own hours. Like, I don't have to work 9 to 5 or whatever your typical hours are. It's like I can just work whenever I want to work. And that is the downside. And actually, it does take a lot of self-motivation, which I definitely don't have a lot of times. I mean, I do. I work hard. You guys know I put out all these videos. I work 40, 50 hours a week. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm a slacker, but I certainly watch my fair share of YouTube videos or TV, during the middle of the day when I just get distracted. Can't wait for your vlog regarding your future-proofing your career. Yep, I'm excited about that one. I just thought about that the other day because I'm going to a blockchain, crypto, whatever conference here in San Francisco on Thursday and Friday of this week. So that's kind of what gave me the idea to do a vlog around that and talk about diversifying and future-proofing your career, especially in the world of development. I said I wasn't going to talk about this, especially in the world of development where like there's new stuff popping up all the time. All right, we'll stop because I got a whole vlog coming on about that. Could you give us information about low-level Swift, like how collections work inside or memory management, like stack or heap, and why not Swift architecture? Because Apple Docs sometimes is not enough. So that I don't know if you've seen the Advanced Swift series, but specifically what you talk about with collections, how collections work. That video I just put out talks a lot about that. And again, if you want, I would recommend buying the book because they really go into it. And then later chapters, I think, go into like memory management, but I'm not sure. But I'm going to touch on this in this Advanced Swift series. We'll touch on a lot of these topics. Hey, Sean, what are your thoughts on Reactive Swift? I dabbled in it for a project. So with the contracting company I work with, like they have a bunch of apps, and one of the apps needed a bug fix, and the developer was like on vacation or something, so I had to jump in and do a bug fix, but it was all in Reactive Swift, and I didn't know Reactive Swift. So that's my exposure to it, was like just jumping in, trying to fix a bug, and not knowing what was going on. So I'm kind of like, I don't know enough about it. I'm sure it's great. I've heard a lot of great things about just reactive programming in general, but I haven't really dug into it enough to have a intelligent opinion. All right, looks like questions are running out. I'm going to go for like 5 more minutes. So if you have a pressing question you've been waiting to ask, go ahead and ask it now. Probably going to go 5 more minutes and then call it a day. Kyle says, when you quit your previous job to focus solely on coding, did you have a lot of savings built up or side hustles? No, I had savings built up. So when I moved to San Francisco back in 2014, I had a full year's worth of living allowances saved up because I moved out here with I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job lined up. I just said, I'm going to move to Silicon Valley and see what I can do. So I did end up getting a job a month later. So I didn't really have to tap into my savings too much. I mean, I did in, just the cost of the move and all that. So I didn't expect to get a job within a month. Like I expected it to take a little bit. And because I got that job, I didn't have to tap into savings. And so that's what allowed me to, when I did, 9 months later, decide to quit my job to go into programming full time, I did have, 6 months or so worth of savings saved up that I could do that. And I understand not everybody, has that luxury. But that's just kind of what I did. And I mentioned this in my video about how I became a developer in 7 months. Like, even though, yes, I quit my job to pursue coding, I was being lazy. I was a slacker. I only probably studied coding for like 3 hours a day. Like, I didn't do the 10 hours a day that I said I was going to do. And the whole reason I justified to myself to quit my job was like, yes, this way I can do 8 hours a day. No, I didn't. I watched TV, I played basketball, I was just hanging out, and I coded for like 3 hours a day. So the reason I say that is because, yes, you may not necessarily have to quit your job to do as much as I did to prep for that. Obviously, if you do quit and you do go 8 hours a day, that'll happen much faster. But like I said, I was being lazy. Nat says, Sean, thank you for interview coding challenge videos. They're great. And building a resume, and we'll start applying for junior iOS jobs soon. Awesome, congrats. I'm gonna do a Sean Allen success stories because I get emails, Twitter DMs. I don't know, probably once every 2 weeks or so, talking about how like that interview challenge series was. They're like, dude, they asked exactly what you said they were going to ask, and I knew exactly what they did because of your videos. Thank you. And then I got the job. So it's like, I have a lot of people that said, obviously they did 99% of the work, but a lot of people were very, very thankful that that interview series actually helped them greatly in the interview, which led to them getting the job. Again, I'm not saying I got them the job, not by any means. Yes, unit testing. Yep, unit testing is huge. Like I just mentioned, that's probably my biggest weakness as a developer that I need to fix. Just got to find time to do it. Or what's probably going to happen, just being completely honest, I'm not going to do it on my own. I'm probably going to have a contract that like requires testing and be like, okay, guess it's time to learn. That's how like a lot of stuff happens. Kyle says, have you considered making a full-length paid tutorials like Brian? Yes. So I've been really kicking the idea of doing YouTube full-time. Not right now. Like, my idea for that is like, for the rest of 2018, start like prepping the channel to possibly go full-time in 2019, or even if it takes till 2020 to go full-time. But part of that is starting to make products. I have an ebook in mind. I'm going to do some tutorials like that. Like, Brian's got great tutorials. I highly recommend it. If you guys don't know, go check out his Instagram tutorial mainly. I know he's got a podcast one out. I haven't looked at that yet, but yeah, in the future I will, probably by the end of the year. That's my goal, by the end of the year, to have one. So just to give you guys an idea of where I'm looking to take the channel is, in order for me to do this full time, like you get paid pretty much nothing from ads. So you have to have products or merchandise or whatever. So coming out with stuff that you guys are going to find very, very useful. Whether it's courses, ebooks. I got some ideas in mind, but you're going to probably start seeing those towards the mid to the end of the year. Christian, do you prefer storyboards or pure code? Do you have some reasons? I thought we were going to get through an entire live stream without this question. No offense to you, Christian, but this does get asked every time. So my thing is it's situational. If it's a very static, simple screen, I like storyboards. Just pretty simple. If it's complex, dynamic, needs to be reused, I prefer code. So I always say I use the right tool for the right job, and my projects are typically a mix of both. For example, my most recent contract, I'm going to do a video all about this too soon, but there was like 100 different, so it was a math app, like elementary school math, and you can imagine all the different ways you can ask a math problem for fourth graders. And so basically, long story short, there was like literally 200 variations of each question, and each one the screen had to look different. So you're not going to make storyboard files for 200 things. So that was all done in code. Pretty much 98% of that app was done in code because the situation called for it. Now, if I just have a simple, fairly straightforward user interface and it's not dynamic and it's just like a table view or whatever, like I'm going to use Storyboard for that. Like for me, it's much quicker and easier. And I think it's quicker and easier for me because like I say I grew up on storyboards, meaning that's how I learned. That's pretty much all I did the first like year and a half of my career. So I feel like I'm very good with interface builder, storyboards. Like I can fly around in there. I know what I'm doing. So I think that also helps my opinion be like, yeah, I prefer to do that for the easy stuff. But again, if it's a highly reusable, customizable view, I'm going to do that in code. So I would say I don't even give a typical project because they're all so different, but it's always a mix. And again, I always say right tool, right job. Got a WebSploit fan. I don't even know what WebSploit is, not going to lie. Little mini celebrity here, Optimist, developed WebSploit. Harold, good to see you, Harold. Same with me on the back end points. I'm not going to dime him out, but yeah. Good to see you, Harold. We'll leave it at that. Hey, Brian, what's going on? I'm just about to wrap up. I DM'd you, Brian, on Twitter. I'm very curious. I have a curious question for you. I don't know if you've answered yet. Maybe you answered on the live stream. The man has entered the chat. Hello, Sean. How to grow a beard? This is taking me like 7 months. Yeah. And you're going to go through a phase where it looks horrible. It's kind of funny. Look, watching back my YouTube videos, I can they call it like the awkward beard phase. Like I can see that and it's just, it looks so horrible. How have your interviews been? So like I mentioned earlier, Harold, I'm doing a whole job hunt mega vlog. It's going to be like, I don't know how many, 6 or 7 videos long. And it's just going to go chronicle the whole thing from how I got the interviews to potentially the offers. I'm still in the process. So yeah, that's why I'm not really saying much about how that goes. Cause I don't want to just like spoil, the whole vlog, but that'll come out hopefully within the next couple weeks. So it could be soon. Like I'm in the process waiting to hear back on final interviews. And obviously if they come back and say no final interview, then the process is done. If they come back and say final interview, then the process is just going to get extended, 4 more weeks. So it's hard to say when that will come out. Sidar says, do a live stream on crypto. I'm an avid crypto trader as well. Would love to talk about it. So I don't know if I'll do that just because it's not really in line with the channel. However, the Slack community does have a crypto channel because there are a handful of people in the Slack community that are into crypto as well. And we talk about it there, talk about our mining rigs and all that stuff. So check out that community. Ian says, I have a full-time job. Can I gain a lot with 4 to 5 hours of free time for coding? Hell yeah, for sure. If you code 4 to 5 hours a day, you're good. Yeah, you'll learn quickly. Harold says, I learned on my lunch breaks before work for 6 months with $50. Yep. Yeah, that's what I said. 4 to 5 hours a week is plenty, or not a week, of a day. Ugh. A day, I assume, is what you're talking about. If you can do 4 to 5 hours a day, you're good. Did you have someone review code when learning Swift, or was it taken care of during a boot camp? So, yeah, the boot camp, when you worked in a group, we had people review code, but it was just like your fellow like student, and it was kind of the blind leading the blind. Like we're all learning together. So, I didn't really get code in. And my biggest thing that hurt me in my career was my first year and a half at the startup I worked at. I was working with another fairly junior developer. I wasn't really working with senior iOS devs that could like really, show me the way and guide me and teach me as a junior developer. I didn't get that until I started with this contracting agency back in early 2017. That's when I was working, even though I was working mostly on my own on these apps, I would submit my pull request to a very senior developer, and he would, give me code reviews and say, nope, change this, let's do it this way, and here's why. And that accelerated my learning so much. This is why I always recommend people's first job should not be independently contracting. You should try to go find a team that has a senior iOS developer. Your learning is going to be accelerated so much by doing it that way. So yeah. Are you working at a tech company? Well, not at a tech company. Right now I'm independent contracting, so I'm a mercenary, coding mercenary right now. Anybody that hires me, I go to. But I did just take a longer contract to hire position. Contract to potential hire position. I'll have the choice in 6 weeks to where that's going to line up with the interviews playing out, and I'll have a choice to maybe take those interviews if the offer comes, or continue with this company. So, but yes, it is a tech company. They're all tech companies, Silicon Valley. Hey, Sean, greetings from Ukraine. What programming language do you consider as most promising in the next few years? I'm going to be super biased on this. Have you ever had the feeling to switch languages? So I'm going to say Swift, because with Swift, you're really tying your career to Apple. Love or hate Apple, it's probably not going anywhere for a while. So whether that's iPhone or whatever the next platform they announce, right? Swift is going to be the language. So I like Swift, but again, super biased, like whatever. But again, I am dabbling in what's called Solidity. And I don't even know if that's going to be the winner, but Solidity is how you write smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. And I just think being able to write smart contracts, whether it's on Ethereum or whatever other platform, because there's a bunch others coming up, is going to be very valuable in the future. So I am dabbling in that, and we talked about like future-proofing your career and diversifying your skills a little bit. I got a whole vlog coming out on that. So that I would say anything to do with blockchain development, and I always feel weird talking about blockchain and crypto because I know it's kind of like CrossFit. Like, you ever heard of that annoying friend that all they talk about is CrossFit? And I feel like that's the reputation crypto has. So I don't even like talking about crypto because I feel like everybody's like, oh my God, shut up. I don't talk about it that much, but that's why I don't like really mention it that much. I mean, like I said, in the Slack community, we talk about it all the time, but that's, a closed group of people. I don't like putting it out on the internet. How can collaborate in iOS project for Make Experienced? Do you think about that for us? Guile, I understand English probably isn't your first language. I'm not sure what you're asking there. If you could rephrase that. Please someone go to this video. This guy does not iterate through arrays. Am I right? Okay, not sure what you're talking about. Oh, I think somebody linked a video maybe. I don't know. All right, guys, a couple questions left. I'm going to do a lightning round. We're over the 1 hour mark. So lightning round to answer the last few questions, and then I'm going to call it a day. Are you going to have an advanced storyboard tutorial like priority and adaptive? That's on the list. If you guys saw my video idea list, it's literally 200 ideas long. So it's on there. It's just a matter of like what I plan on making at the time or what is on there. So yes, I do intend to. When I'll get to it, I don't know. Like I said, that's kind of the whole big reason I want to go full time, because if I went full time, I'd be doing daily content and I could just pump through that list. So yeah, it'll come eventually, but I don't know when. No promises on the date. Google coding interview questions and answer. Find cycle and array whiteboard Thursday. Okay, yeah. YouTube doesn't let you link. I'm in an argument with the guys on this, so I need help. Hey Sean, enjoying your videos. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Final interview with which company, Sean? That's spoilers for the. I tell you who I'm interviewing with: Coinbase, Facebook, Apple, Google. That's all I'll say, because doing the whole job hunt, mega vlog, and we'll talk all about that. Don't want to spoil it. How can collaborate on iOS projects for Make Experience? Okay. How did you transition from learning code to apply it to making actual programs? I mean, it sounds silly, but it's just start. What really accelerated my learning was building my own project. So I started off with just like tutorials, like I'm sure everybody has, like, oh, let me do a table view tutorial, and where you build a small little app. My learning didn't take off till I tried to like build my own idea. It's an app called UReact. It's still in the App Store. I'm actually going to do a video series where I like do a 2.0 because I want to update it now that I know what I'm doing. But that was my first app I ever decided to make on my own, and that's where the learning came, because it's an iMessages app, so there was no like tutorial to do it. I had to dig into the documentation to figure it out because the iMessages framework was brand new, so there was, like I said, no tutorials out there. And that's when the learning really accelerated. So come up with your own idea and try to build that. You're going to learn a lot. Your website is amazing, just clean. Good example to follow. Yep, I'm a huge fan of minimalism. I hate clutter, even in my code bases. This is why I like Storyboard over programmatic for the simple screens, is because I just don't like all that clutter in my code. I want my code to be as, neat and clean as possible. And, on my website, as you see. Sean, how about that new thing came out called Flutter? I haven't had a chance to look at that, but Brian, who I don't know if he's still in here, he just launched a video on that this morning. So go to his channel, Let's Build That Up, and check that out. I just haven't had a chance to even look at it, but I'm not really a fan of cross-platform development. Again, it has its time. Every time I say that, people like bash me and say no, because it's like a war, like which is better. Like it has its purpose, it has its time and its place. I'm not bashing it, but I'm just not a fan of it. So same answer right there for that, because React Native is also a cross-platform thing. Kyle Clark says, do you think it's a good idea to avoid third-party libraries such as Alamo Fire? No, I use Alamo Fire in every single project pretty much. I use them to an extent. So obviously, right, you don't want to have 30 CocoaPods or third-party libraries in your app. Like, that's way too much. Having a small handful, sure, that's perfectly fine. And again, the main ones like Alamo Fire, like I use in pretty much every single app. So yeah, just to give you an average on my contracting apps, I probably have 4 to 5 CocoaPods on average, 4 to 5 CocoaPods in the app. And it's things like Alamo Fire, SV Progress HUD I use a lot, which is just a progress indicator. And then the other ones are like project specific, like iOS charts. Anytime I have to do charting, I use iOS charts for that. So, yeah, 4 to 5 is typically what I do. I don't think there's like a right answer, but I do know that like having 30 to 40 is probably not the right answer. SK, I'm a Swift engineer too. Bias is heck, LOL. I feel very comfortable, but Swift, but I really want to become a ninja at algos. Do you believe in coding katas? I recently did terrible on an FB phone screen. I've heard coding katas before. I don't 100% know what they are. I can't remember. But I'm working on that too. I want those algorithm and data structures questions to just be like second nature to me. So I'm going to do a whole series. I'm going to like go through cracking the coding interview questions probably like once a week. This would probably be after the Advanced Swift book series, where I just do a cracking the coding interview video once a week for you guys, put it out there. It'll be a whole series. So hopefully after like a year, there'll be 50 plus questions you can go to in Swift. And the reason that's valuable is because cracking the coding interview is in Java, whereas there is a repo that has it in Swift, but some of those answers are really short and they don't give you like the details behind it and explain how to go through it. So I'm going to answer the questions in Swift, explain them, and talk about them there. All right, wrapping up quickly. How would you collaborate on projects in iOS to obtain experiences? For example, have you thought about creating a project in GitHub where we could collaborate with you? Sorry for my English, no worries. Somebody has brought this idea up before of doing like a community project where like I would manage it, you guys would submit pull requests, and we would build an app together. That is a great idea. I love the idea. It's just a lot of work. I mean, if you can imagine, let's say 50 people said, yes, that's good, I want to do it. And then now I'm reviewing 20 pull requests a day. Like, that's just a lot of work for me. Yeah, so I think the idea is great. It's just I don't think the workload is reasonable. Yeah, even Instagram uses Alamo Fire. Yeah, Alamo Fire is very, very prominent. Thanks for the shout out, Sean. Great to listen to you while I cook up some morning brunch. Yep. What is the advantage of developing apps cross-platform libraries such as React Native over developing in Swift? You get a single code base and a single language. So basically, what my opinion of it is that it's good for like small startups that can't afford a native Android developer and a native iOS developer. And there is convenience in only having one code base to manage. So like I said, I do see it does have value. I just prefer the native development. I don't know. I just like to do. I always say this, and this gets the backlash. I like to do things the right way. And what I mean by like, if I'm building an iOS app, I want to build using the language that is specifically built for iOS, have access to all the libraries, all the APIs, all the functionality of the phone. Whereas I don't think you get all that with the cross-platform. And to be fair, I'll be the first to admit, I've never done cross-platform development. So I'm sure I could be speaking ignorantly here, but it's just common sense that like, something that says, yes, you can write one language for both platforms isn't going to be as good as something you write in the language developed for the phone, for that platform. Like it's just too good to be true. All right, guys. Kyle, thanks for this, the late super chat, $1.99. I like the, couldn't give the $2? No, just kidding. All right, well, thanks, guys. Appreciate that, Kyle. And I did know, I see you just signed up for the Slack community, Kyle, so I'll get that invite out there to you. Appreciate that. All right, guys, it was good to be back for the monthly live stream. It's been a while. We'll be back next month. I might do these bi-weekly. I don't know. I'm going to figure this out. Still trying to figure out the cadence of it, but good to see you guys again. We'll see you guys next time.